Welcome, everyone, to Blue Collar Startup. This is a podcast where we dive into inspiring stories of real, everyday entrepreneurs, trades workers who are turning their blue collar dreams into reality. Whether you are a student thinking about a career in the trades or a new veteran trades worker, business owner, or someone with a passion for hands-on work, this podcast is going to be for you. As you know, we are experiencing a significant shortage of skilled labor in the trades, and our goal is to help change that, guys. Join us as we explore the challenges, triumphs, and lessons learned from those who have built successful businesses from the ground up and that exhibit the American values of integrity, grit, and hard work. From plumbing to carpentry, auto repair to landscaping, we're going to try to cover it all. Get ready to be inspired, motivated, and educated with practical tips and lessons to help you on your own journey. So grab your tools, roll up your sleeves. Let's get to work. Well, that's our new intro, by the way.
I love it.
We're working through it. Did I nail it?
Yeah, I mean, we dialed in. I like it.
Dialed in. So for those of you that are joining us on YouTube or Rumble and watching the video episode, we've got Derek on the side shuffle here. He's out of the computer screen, but he'll be chiming in here. You'll hear him from time to time as he jumps in, but you won't see his handsome mug on the video. So sorry to disappoint everyone. I know that's why everybody watches. So just have to get by today without it. But outside of that, though, we're joined by William Day from Jersen Construction. You guys are based out of Albany, right? Albany.
Waterford, New York.
So Waterford, okay.
Yeah, Capital District area. Yep.
Very nice. Well, welcome to the show. We appreciate you taking the time to come on.
Thank you very much for having me. It's an honor.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So, William, if you don't mind, just give us a quick rundown of who you are, what you do, and maybe a little bit about Jersen Construction.
Yeah, of course. As you had said, my name is William Day. I'm currently an assistant project manager at Jersen Construction. I'm currently 30 years old, and I'm from central New York. So I grew up in a small town just south of Utica.
Okay.
West Winfield, actually Miller's Mill. So it's really small dairy farming community. The cows way outnumber the people. So
nice.
That's a great, beautiful area. About 10 miles from Cooperstown, Glimmerglass area. So it's an amazing part of the state. And currently, for the second part of your question there, as an assistant project manager at Jersen, it's just as the title suggests, I assist the full-on project managers, senior project managers, project executives, and everything in between, especially the superintendents in the field. Yeah. So, and Jersen, general contractor, one of the largest in the capital region, a variety of projects. I've been with Jersen, it'll be about a year in April, so I'm a little newer to it. One thing we'll say about Jersen, most people that have been there or that are there have been there for like 20 years. That's not.
Oh, no kidding.
So it's very tight-knit, family-oriented company. Once you're in, but kind of to pivot back on that, the first project I did with Jersen was a large dorm facility out on Washington Ave, 236 bedrooms.
They really threw you into it.
It's 236 units, 556 bedrooms. So it was a really big project.
Wow.
Multi-year. And, from my past, it was, doing houses in Cooperstown to this massive project. But currently right now, I'm at the NFR, the Nanotech Fabrication facility in Albany. So anyone that drives by, going on 90 or 787 there, that giant glass building with all the cranes there, there's about 6 or 7 cranes in the whole right now. So
wow,
giant investment from New York State.
Yeah. What's Jersen's role on that project? Are you guys the GC there, or?
It's actually a Gilbane project. They are the CM on there, and we're subcontracted out, and we own the. We actually have a variety of packages there. The one I'm currently working on is the footing concrete, so it's a mass concrete pour. These are very big pours. Actually, probably first week of March, we are on our 8th pour, and we haven't had one under 1,100 yards. So,
wow.
So,
how many trucks is that?
So, well, you do the math, it's.
I'm slow.
You get between 10 and 11 yards per truck.
Okay.
So, for example, we did a 1,500-yard pour. That's a minimum of 150 trucks in one day. So
Wow.
Amazingly, we'll do 2 concrete pumps or a telebelt, something like that, and we can pour that in 5 hours.
Pretty much take over the concrete facility for the day.
Yep. So you pour that, I figured out the math. It's like, every minute it's like 2 yards of concrete going down. So.
Aside from dumping Quikrete into a fence hole post or post hole, I have like no knowledge of concrete.
Yeah.
What you have to keep that pouring, right? Like it's not like you could stop. Like you've got to keep those trucks continuously pouring.
Yeah, be continuous. It's a tri venture. So at first we were pouring on Saturday just to have the supply because we couldn't necessarily take away from all the other contractors around. We can't, have a monopoly on the concrete. But it's each company probably has 20 trucks, on call for that, and they just rotate them through. But the batch plants are so close. We use Cranesville. It's about 7 minutes away. So
no kidding.
They can just come, over and over. Like we'll start at 4 or 5 in the morning. We'll be done pouring that by 9, 10, 11 in the morning, and then it's a waiting game, waiting for it to set up and finish.
That is amazing. That is a lot of concrete.
It's a lot of concrete, when it's an 8-foot floor or an 8-foot thick haunch in there. It's
That's how deep.
Yeah, and parts of it will go from 4 foot to 8 foot in some spots. It's pretty I mean, this is my first experience with it because I was used to doing homes. You pour an ICF foundation for a camp, on the lake in Cooperstown. 7 trucks. It's like that's a big pour day. But now, we'll pour 30, 35 trucks. Well, it'll range between 25 to 35 trucks an hour.
Holy moly, man!
How long is the prep time to get even ready to the point to pour?
That's
a lot of rebar.
That's a really good question, and there's it's a loaded question as well, because if you were just left to your own devices, it doesn't take as long as you might think. But there's electricians in there, they're setting precast now. There's all sorts of trades in there, so you're kind of jockeying around for position. That site down there is a classic game of Tetris. It's like we have to move over here so they can get over here, but I think we were doing like a 2-week turnaround from, we get the area turned over to us, ready to go. We start forming, we have a vapor barrier, all the rebar, everything like that, and the anchor bolts are a big thing, they're about 2.5 inches in diameter, 4 foot long.
Wow.
Yeah. It's incredible.
I mean, I guess I get, as you're talking about this, I'm thinking about like 4 to 8 feet thick, but I guess with the sheer weight of what you're putting on top of that, I would have to imagine it has to be thick.
Yeah, and we don't own there's piles driven into the ground beneath that are concrete on. But with that being said, I'm not too well versed in the whole pile drilling game. But they're 120, 130 feet into the ground, 24 inches in diameter, and there's thousands of them down there.
Thousands.
Thousands. It's
every time we have someone on that does large projects like that, I'm just always in awe of the ability to do it. The whole thing, the scale of it, what goes into it is just mind-boggling to me. I could never wrap my head around it. I guess that's why I'm in marketing. And
it's humbling. It's very humbling. Each person has a job, and no one, obviously there's people that make more important decisions, but everyone has such a vital role. If you take one person out of there, and it's a domino effect. Yeah,
it's all gonna come crashing down.
Oh, it's 100%, and yeah, it's very humbling being on those jobs. You think you're really good, and then
Now, in there, you mentioned doing work like houses in Cooperstown before. So tell us about your background. Where are you coming out of?
Yeah, so currently, well, obviously I'm at Jersen, large GC, but, I grew up, I am essentially I'm a 5th generation tradesman at the moment. So I grew up in the trades. You know, my father and my grandfather were both union carpenters. They each put about 40 years into their company. They both worked for Murnane. And so I grew up in that kind of just a true working class family. You know, my father built our house. He built our neighbors' houses. He, you know, my grandfather and my great grandfather built a lot of the houses in Mohawk, New York. So, but with that being said, you know, I went through school, did everything, and I didn't really want to so much, you know, go directly into the trades. And I went to college to be an English teacher.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so I went to Mohawk Valley Community College. I have an education degree from there, and then I transferred to Hartwick College, kind of like we were just saying. And I graduated with English, you know, as an English major with a minor in adolescent education. So
you're a very well-read project manager.
well, you know, I like to think so, but you know, I've been known to misspell some things here and there.
Yeah, that happens.
You know, my guys listen. You know, they'll crack up. We have some pretty good stories about that. But you know, after that, I used my degree right out of college. You know, those student loans, they start coming in 6 months after you graduate. So I needed a job, and I was an English teacher at BOCES. So for the alternative ed program, so, you know, troubled youth, you know, things like that, taught at Herkimer County BOCES. So I did that, but meanwhile, in that whole time, I was going through the application process for Marine Corps officer school, and I actually got in the naval aviation track to go be a pilot. So yeah, it was really cool. And I quit teaching and I went and did that. And then, you know, into training, I got hurt pretty bad and they discharged me on that. So you get one shot, and I was, oh, that's, you know, here we go. I could have been, you know, Maverick from Top Gun, but, you know, and not to get too long-winded with it there, but, you know, after I got out, again, I needed a job. So I kind of went back on, you know, not only the skills I learned from my family, but like a lot of us in the trades, you know, my summers were spent, you know, working. You know, my dad would get me jobs on job sites, you know, working in high school and all throughout college. I worked, you know, vacations, summer vacation. I always worked on a construction site, mostly as a laborer. And then I worked for a company that did timber framing as well. So I got to learn all that. You know,
that's cool.
Huge post and beam houses or condos.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and I got in with a really good company in Cooperstown called Red Point Design Build. It's owned by a guy named Tim Horvath. Yeah, he pretty much took me in, you know, taught me the business side of it, management, estimating, you know, just. He really gave me a great foundation. I worked there. He taught me everything, you know, that consists of my foundation and construction. Great guy, but, you know, and it came to a certain point that I wanted to try different things, you know, and I, like we all do, you know, and, you know, like I said, I just turned 30, but in my 20s, I kind of bounced around a little bit, you know, just trying to find what I did, you know, what I wanted to do. So I worked for a metalworking company down in Manhattan a lot. So I built like an Hermes boutique on Madison Avenue, things like that. Yeah, it was kind of cool, you know. And then eventually I was just doing some research. I found Jersen on the internet. I threw in my resume, and the vice president, Chris Lipkowski, or one of the vice presidents, Chris Lipkowski, gave me a call, and we started working on it, and here I am.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's kind of a non-traditional path, you know. I've had to play a lot of catch up with that. You know, some guys they go to college for engineering or construction management. But, you know, I think I kind of learned it from actually just being the guy out there, you know, sheathing houses in December, January. You know what I mean? You kind of learn it from that end of it. You know?
Yeah, a lot of ways to get an education.
Yeah, that's, you know, everything's a learning experience to me. So
yeah. And you obviously must be a pretty smart guy if you were going to be a military pilot. I mean, they don't let, you know.
Yeah, you know, it took me about 2 years of testing to get into that program. So it was a really big gut check, you know, when, you know, it was hard. You know, I probably could have gone back, but I got married. Of course, I had a kid the first time, you know, and then once, you know, the thought of living on an aircraft carrier 10 months out of the year, being away from the kids was hard.
Yeah. Yeah, a
But
lot of respect to guys that do it. And
yeah, 100%. Yeah. But I got to do the Marine Corps boot camp thing, I got,
I'm sure that was a breeze.
oh, dude, that was, yeah. Yeah.
50 pounds.
Oh, yeah. I went in probably about 175 pounds. I came out at like 130.
Oh, wow.
Just running. Of course, I went in August and officer school. July and August. The officer school's in Virginia, so it was so hot.
What
But it was good.
what do you think the worst thing about boot camp was?
You know, everyone knows about the physical, side of it. You're running all the time, getting up, and the screaming. That's just like one thing, because, and as a side note for everyone, the reason why they yell at you is because they can never put you in physical harm or physical stress. So they have to create stress in other ways and see, how you process stress and make decisions. So, after you get over that for the first week, but I think that the not knowing what they're going to do next, you might come back from the chow hall after eating, and actually I will say when you're eating, they leave you alone. So you get about, you get about 5 minutes to eat. So,
5 minutes.
yeah, and it's unlimited food. You can eat as much as you want for those 5 minutes, but you better finish everything. But you might come back to your barracks and the beds might be everywhere. There's going to be stuff hanging out the windows. Just the not knowing or what they're going to throw at you, which is the whole point. So that was the hardest thing. But that's how they teach you to, adapt and overcome.
Do you think those skills translated over into what you're doing now?
100%. I think, they instill in you many things, especially Marines. They're very steeped in tradition. I can't necessarily speak for the other armed forces, but the Marines are very, very cult-like in that, we have Iwo Jima and all those, famous battles. But I think just knowing on how to adapt and overcome any issue that's in front of you, always moving forward, never giving up on something, having the discipline to just say, this is our objective. We're going to figure it out. If we go off course, we're going to, get back on course and get it done. And with what you have available, that serves me in my career, in construction. It serves me as a father. It serves me as a husband, as a homeowner, and as a citizen of our nation.
Yeah. I think that's one of the things that always amazes me about the people that I know that are either in the military or is their ability to just do what has to be done regardless how they feel about it, or the physical toll. Like I've got friends that are military people that like, yeah, I guess I'm gonna run a marathon in 2 days. Like, oh, you've been training? Like, no, I'm just gonna go do, and they just muscle through it, man. Like
I've been very guilty of that. I did an Ironman, a half Ironman, and I really didn't train that much, but I finished it and it hurt so bad. But I'm like, listen, yep.
Just gonna embrace the suck and muscle through.
Exactly. And it's just you just do it. We all do things every single day that we don't want to do, but we have to.
Where was the Ironman?
I did Syracuse.
Okay.
Yeah, 70.3.
Nice.
Yeah, that was pretty good. Yeah. Why not?
Why not? I know.
Yeah, why not?
Just go out there and do it, right?
Nation trophy for that.
So, I know Dee was probably going to ask this question. What does your typical day look like right now at Jersen?
Yeah, so I get asked that, on various occasions. If you asked me 2 years ago when my first child was, before my son was born, it would be totally different. I'd be getting up to go work out, doing, and after work, go golfing with friends, stuff like that. But now, I live about an hour and a half from Albany, where I work, where we're essentially based out of. So, that's an hour and a half drive, 3 hours a day in the truck every day.
Wow.
So, I'm up early. I like to be on site between 6 and 7 in the morning. It's usually more towards 7 lately, especially because my wife just had another baby. So,
Nice. Congrats.
yeah, thank you. So I have a daughter now.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
About to turn 2 months old. So, right now, yeah. So right now, I get to work and this job, as you were saying with the scale of it, there are a lot of coordination meetings, just getting everyone on point. So, we have an office trailer down there. I get on site, there's a list of things I have to do every morning, just get everyone prepped, get the guys out there actively working. And then, I just work through, what else, whatever I have, it might be submitting, billing for T&M, or it might be updating or actualizing the schedule for my boss, stuff like that. And in between, and then, the guys come in and be like, hey, we need this. Can you pull this off the plans? Anything like that. So I pretty much do that all day,
Yeah.
As my job title suggests, I'm assisting in whatever needs to be done. And which I love, you're essentially almost like the fixer. It's just like, hey, I need this, just do it. I don't care how you do it. It just needs to be done. And I love that. And then usually I try to get out of there 3, 4, 5, somewhere. The guys are typically out there between 2:30 and 3. So obviously when they are gone, that's catch up time for me as well.
And so what you get up at 3, 4 o'clock?
I'll get up probably 4:30, depends on what's going on, feed the dogs, do whatever.
You got any crazy morning routines, as I was say? You out there doing sunbathing or catching plunging?
Manifesting my future.
That's right.
Yeah. Right now, I don't have many routines. I like to just get up, and sometimes I like to just sit there in silence for, you can call it meditation, you can call it whatever you want. I don't necessarily call it that, but I know that's that time when my wife and kids are still asleep. That's like my time right there.
Yeah.
Just to sit, and I'm not actively driving, or work, and I just sit there. I kind of just see how I'm feeling for the day, and then I'm like, and this is also a military thing. It's just the second I lace up my boots, I know it's go time. And, until I unlace them, if those boots are on, we're working, we're getting things done.
Nice.
So, yeah. Yeah, I am. I'll give you that.
I was waiting for you to be one of those people that says, no, I don't like, which is always crazy to me because I drink like 2 pots of coffee a day before 9 a.m. So I'm like, but people like that get up early, and I get up early as well, but and they do it without coffee. I'm like, how the hell do you do that, man? Like,
I tried to take it into account. Do you guys know Andrew Huberman?
Yeah.
He suggests, not drinking coffee right away.
And I know, for 90 minutes.
Yeah. So, and I kind of experimented with that a little bit, and I actually do feel better. I'll get more energy if I just don't hit it right away, maybe, until I get halfway to work. If you guys know, you put coffee in a Yeti mug, it's hot until 1 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
So it's not like for lack of it going cold. So, I was on matcha tea for a while. I tried that. Yeah.
What's matcha tea?
It's, I'm going to be honest, I don't know what it comes from.
Sounds fancy.
It's, I believe.
Doesn't it?
Yeah, it comes from the tree down in South America, right? It's almost like the bark they grind up. And,
yeah, I think you're right. Like some sort of powder.
You get raw matcha, like in loose, it's like bark.
Yeah.
So steep some of that up. But yeah.
Yeah, I tried the Huberman protocol of waiting 90 minutes.
Get some sun on your face if you can. He suggested that, or light.
Yeah, he loves those morning photons. But I can't do it. I literally get up, I walk downstairs to the coffee maker, and if I forgot to set it the night before, then I'll basically just stand there for about 8 minutes waiting for it to, or really 4 minutes, because it gets half full, and that's when I pour my first cup. But
are you a drip coffee maker kind of guy, or French press, or
right now I'm drip. I've been a French press guy for lengths of time, and it's really good, but it just takes too damn long.
I know.
So you gotta boil the water, then you gotta soak the ground, the coffee for 7 minutes, and I I like you, I like to sit there because everyone out, the whole house is asleep, and I get like,
time.
yeah, man. And so it's like cup of coffee and just sitting there doing nothing.
Yeah,
But
great.
so, yeah, it's good stuff, man. And matcha's good stuff too, though. So I had a question and then I distracted myself here, which I often do. As far as like the one of the questions I had for you was in a lot of companies, the project manager or people involved in that side of the business are also involved in the business development side of the business. Do you get pulled into that as well on the business development, or is it?
It's great that you mentioned that because recently I've kind of started, I don't want to say I'm inserting myself a little bit into it, but I'm really passionate about that side of business and construction as well. So I've been kind of just trying to take a more active role in that. And I will say the VP at Jersen, or one of the VPs, Chris Lefkowski, has been very accommodating with that. He knows that I'm passionate about whether it's labor advocacy or business development or interfacing with the unions. And he's really given me a lot of slack, and just a lot of line to play with that. So yes. Honestly, I'm getting more into it. So, I'm not a aficionado on, the ins and outs on it. But yes, that is something that I'm actively doing now.
Nice. Yeah, I was curious about how, like, as a company, Jersen attacks that, because it seems to me like most of the larger companies that we've spoken with have come on the show, or maybe we've just talked to about this. They typically do kind of wrap that business development. You help get the deal put together, and then you become the project manager or one of the project managers, depending on the scope on that deal. So it's
I will say, like most of us, we've all had multiple bosses, multiple companies we worked for, but I will say with Jersen, if you have the motivation to do something and you're passionate about something and you bring up an idea and it's good for the company and good for everyone, and can help the trades, our state, our nation in general.
Yep.
They very supportive. I've never not felt like I could just come up, go approach anyone with an idea and they'd be like, no.
Just
it'd be like, hey, that's a great idea. Maybe let's do it this way, and I think, and it was just like the business development and, working with the unions is something I wanted to do. And look, I'm kind of doing it now.
Yeah. Here you are.
It's a lot of support, from Jersen and the leadership within that team.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I was also wondering while you're talking about too, like how many projects are you on at one time? Do you stay on just one project until your portion of it is finished, or do you juggle multiple projects at once?
Right now this project is so big, it's kind of an outlier in many regards. So I'm pretty much full-time on that. But you know how it is with projects in the past. You might get some callbacks for warranty things or typical stuff. So I'm actually kind of managing one of those right now in Albany as well. It's it's not that doesn't take up so much more of my time. So to answer your question, pretty much myself, I've been on one project. But I know with other project managers, people that have more experience, that have those skills, if it's manageable, they will manage multiple projects at a time.
Yeah.
Yeah. All about the scale at the end of the day.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
People out
small projects might equal my one big project. So, and and Jersen allows a lot of feedback from their employees on like what they can actually do. If you get spread too thin, they'll certainly help you out.
They'll help you out. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are some of those fires or problems and challenges that you face on a day-to-day basis, and what does that look like?
I think it's whether it's a large, multi-million-dollar project or, all the way down to putting an addition on someone's house, there's always dealing with the unknowns, if you're trenching or, or digging or doing concrete, whatever, you might be digging, you might hit a pipe that you didn't know was there. It's the unexpected, variables, which is kind of what I was talking about earlier, having those skills to deal with what's thrown at you. I think, and then there's a lot of moving pieces, and especially as like a younger guy in management, still learning how the different aspects or different players within the construction team work together. Much like sports, we each have our own job, but you have to do it in unison. I think those are, that's, I don't know if I kind of answered your question there, but that's definitely a fire to put out, dealing with just unexpected things that are happening, on the project I'm on right now, actually, it's the safety program there is very intense, and rightfully so, dealing with all the safety regulations, OSHA, all the safety officers, you need red tape here, yellow tape over here, your extension cords need to be labeled this way, and kind of dealing with that. And, I'm down there, I'm kind of co-managing the safety program down there as well, just kind of making sure all of our ducks are in a row, that we're safe, we're doing our job, and helping out other trades as well.
Logging your safety meetings,
doing all that, and I don't necessarily do it. There's another assistant project manager at Tony at Jersen. His name is Tony Carnudo, a colleague of mine, and he's pretty much the PM on that project now, and he's great. But he does a lot of the RFIs, that end of the managing. I'm more on the operational side, dealing with manpower, the guys closely with the superintendent. So, it is, or dealing with, another one is like you have deliveries and the delivery doesn't show up on time, and it's like you need that rebar to get going, and dealing with how to, pivot off of that.
Are you guys still seeing, speaking of deliveries, are you still seeing any supply chain issues that we were plagued with in pretty much every industry for a few years there?
And we're kind of referring to COVID.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think right now, even if there is a shortage or a delay in, product, it's not ever going to be anything like we had in COVID.
Yeah.
Not necessarily, nothing out of the ordinary. There's always going to be.
It's good. Yeah.
Yeah. There's always going to be things that are back ordered, if you want some specific toilet, you might have.
Right.
Well, but I remember specifically during COVID, I bought for a house I was doing in Cooperstown. I needed, a breaker panel, just a normal, I believe it was a 30 breaker panel, just the box, not even, the contents on the inside. That was an 11-month wait.
Oh, boy.
Just for, a sheet metal box.
That's what I want to ask, because we saw, like, even as late as like maybe 6 or 7 months ago, one of our episodes, and I asked that question just to see, like, are we still seeing any lagging issues? And they at that point were still kind of seeing some stuff, and so that's why I was wondering where we are now. Like, are we still seeing it, or have we basically moved back into your normal, logistical problems with getting things from,
of course,
here,
Yeah, and we'll see in the future too, with the tariff program and stuff. Who
knows what's gonna go down?
We're about to start to learn.
We're used to it now.
Yeah, well, we have a basis in dealing with that, but and Jersen always works with great suppliers too. So that's key as well.
One thing that you mentioned, like, all the moving pieces and parts, and I, as a project manager, at least I know in my world, when I think of project management, it's looking at the overall scope, breaking it down into little pieces, and then trying to execute and basically, check the box, right, as you go down the list of those little pieces. Is that what project management is for you at the scale that you're working at? And what tools do you use to help manage that chaos?
Yeah, no, great question. You pretty much distilled it down in the question itself. Because, it'll, no matter what the size of the project, like I said, whether it's a house or a mega, large industrial project, you still have to look at, the time that you're given, when it needs to be done, you have to phase it out, create your, what has to happen in each phase, whether it's 2, 3, 4 phases, anything like that. But I think kind of going off what you said there is that within each phase, you have to have deadlines, and then backdate it from there. Just work your way back to when you want each phase to be done. And then so you hit your end, substantial completion date. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's the essence of it, and then once you know where you need to go, you know how to get there.
Yeah.
So, and just breaking down each piece, it's like a pyramid, the end is at the very top and you're just breaking it down, fanning it out from there. And then you have your deadlines, your sub deadlines, everything from there.
And do you guys use a piece of software, or are you just a yellow
Yeah.
guy?
So primarily, on my computer, there's 2 programs that are always pulled up. It's Procore, construction management software, and then Bluebeam, PDF editing. So you can pull in drawings on there, scale, and do whatever you need to do, markup. So those are 2 invaluable tools.
And what was the first one? Procore?
Procore.
Procore, right? Dude, we gotta reach out to those guys for sponsorship, right?
They're massive, I think.
Yeah,
everybody uses
a lot of smaller residential guys will use Builder Trend.
Okay.
I got started with Builder Trend, but at the end of the day, it's almost the same. It's for document tracking, plan tracking. Procore, the only thing that it doesn't necessarily have, it's not scheduling software. So usually we'll use Microsoft Project, things like that. But in terms of tracking finances and documents, plan sets, it's great.
So working with all these subs, Mike, I got a quick question. I wanted to get William's take on the labor market and what that looks like managing not only your own staff but some of the trades and the subcontractors and their staff. What is your outlook? What are your thoughts on the current labor market?
Yeah, so I'm gonna say, as a person in construction, like we are, it's positive overall because there's a movement of people. There's different coalitions, programs, communities, and guys like yourself, promoting, blue collar work. But that being said, when I look at it, the data doesn't lie. If we look at our labor unions, which, I'm using that as an example because Jersen is a union company. So, we're dealing with the unions, quite intimately. The number of people that are retiring is greater than the amount of people coming in. So, there's that deficit. But, I kind of answered it both ways for you there. I'd like to be half full about it because it's obvious people see an issue, but there's also people trying to combat that, and not to, pivot too hard on that, but recently Jersen and myself, we have joined the NCTWC, Northeastern Construction Workforce Coalition.
Him and Doug.
We're about to start being more active in that. Myself, one of the board members, Todd Vandervoort over there, he named me to the legislative committee. So I'll be working on hopefully creating some policy, within our state government to kind of just combat this issue.
Yep.
Recently, myself and Chris Lepkowski, we met with Senator Peter Oberacker over at, in the government buildings, and he sits on the labor committee for the state senate. And we just kind of, just sat there, talked with him about just different ideas about what we can do, engagement, what, is this something that the state itself is very concerned about, which I hope. But yeah, we were about to start being a lot more active with it.
That's awesome.
And trying to combat it, we've met with the heads of local labor unions to just hear what they have to say and, kind of synthesize that all together, compress it down. And, there's got to be common denominators in the issues that we're seeing with not only recruitment, but retention of young apprentices, young workers in the trade. But yeah, I think, that was a long version of your question. I'm positive overall. I'm always going to be half full about it, but there are things to overcome. And I think there's enough people out there in our community and our country as a whole that we know that there's a change that needs to be made.
Yeah. As kind of like a follow-up question to that, I'm curious. I was thinking about this the other day. When you're in these conversations talking about those numbers, right? The number of people retiring from the union versus the people coming in. And I know Derek and I, we've talked about this on other episodes where just the overall union and non-union, the people leaving the trades versus people coming in, that's a scary ratio right now. But also it yields opportunity, right? Because you've got your whole supply and demand. And as that supply gets smaller, the demand's going to increase. My question for you is, in these conversations, is anyone talking about a supply shortage with a demand increase? It has to affect pricing and cost, right? So like at some point in time, and maybe I'm oversimplifying the economics of it, but there's discussions about how that's going to affect the price to build a building down the road. Like, you know what I mean? Like, because if your labor costs go up because the demand is so high because the supply is so short, it's got to have that, right? Like, does that come up in conversation?
Yeah, I mean, but if we get even simpler, just in our country and the world as a whole, the price of living continues to go up, and everything's going to go up from there. I mean, making $50 an hour now isn't worth, what it was back in 1990. Making $50 in 1990.
You're balling, man.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's Wall Street kind of money.
Yeah.
But I think, overall, yeah, to kind of answer your question, that's just there's going to be a balance that needs to be made with that things are going to get more expensive, but you also have to create incentive within the trades, that you could make this much money, working, and I think that kind of goes off, it shoots off there a little bit with there's a stereotype or a stigma with construction trades. We've all seen it, be like, if you don't go to college, you're going to end up working construction. And, I know on my end, there's people I went to school with that went to, a couple of them Ivy League schools, and I guarantee I do a little better than they do,
Yeah.
So, and we are actively contributing to our communities, our state, our nation, it's great to be able to drive by a building and know that you built it,
Yeah, we hear that a lot on the show.
It's great. It's you can't explain it to someone unless they've done it, and some people will be so proud that they built the steps to their deck, you know what I mean? And it's a good feeling knowing you did that. Imagine doing that on a building that people live in or work in, and I think bringing that into it, it could also offset whether it, the wage, that people are earning. If they have a sense of belonging, I personally would rather earn less, but have that sense of, community and self-respect, versus making a lot of money and hating myself,
Yeah.
And I think the trades are rare in that,
Yeah, and I know for Derek and I, it's a big hope of why we launched this podcast and why we do it is to help bring awareness to the fact that there is so much opportunity in the trades, regardless if it's construction or welding or what, doesn't matter, right? There's so much opportunity, and that go to college, that's great, but there's another path that you can go into trades and not spend $400,000 on an education and start making money and learn while you earn. And it's just so much opportunity. So I was just curious if that comes up in those meetings or in those conversations about the concern, because I know from a business owner, as I watch my labor costs rise because cost of living is rising, and I have to be able to help my team, and so that means I then have to charge my clients more. And I just look at the what's going on in the trades, I'm like, man,
just basic trickle down economics there. You know, if the top, is affected, it's going to hit everything downhill.
So, in your opinion, William, since you're working with some of these people direct, and I think you guys are in front of the right people. But as we know, New York, throughout the country, there's so many pieces of legislation that make insurance expensive, that make all of the requirements on some of these projects to be a lot more expensive than usual. I mean, do you think if they were able to bring that down, incentivize people to go into the trades, that at some point it would balance out, you would think, right?
Yeah, I mean, at that point, we haven't seen that yet, so you're almost kind of projecting it, what you think, but I would say yes, yeah, 100%. If we could just figure out, how to get that balance of, making things affordable. Insurance is very expensive. I'm sure everyone that you talk to, I'm sure it's their number one cost besides labor and materials. It's insurance comes next, and liability on a construction site is massive.
Yeah.
It could bankrupt you,
Well,
how about a tax break for trades workers,
The tax break would be nice.
I would love for that.
Tax breaks.
Yeah.
Well, to your point, like workers' comp alone. A company your size, I can't imagine what you guys pay each year in workers' comp.
To be honest, I don't deal with that at all. But yeah, you just look at, from, an objective view on it. Yeah, of course. I'm sure it's
a lot of money.
But, but with companies that can afford, large insurance payments and to actually do these projects, I think, not a lot of companies could do projects this big, and that's just how it is, that I think you get the quality from companies that can, actually, have the systems in place to actually afford to do these things. Mm-hmm. Not defending it too much, but, I think that is an aspect that if you are able to cover those upfront costs, it's probably a pretty legitimate venture.
Yeah. And it's interesting that you say that there's not a lot of companies that can do those large projects. Of course, that's accurate. I'm just always like I think it's really cool. Like every time we talk to larger companies, and you guys are all working with each other in some capacity across, like it's just such a great thing to see. There's so much just in the we'll say the big construction in this area and hopefully around the country, but in this area we can speak to because we have them on the show, and it's just really cool how everybody's just like like you're saying, like, oh, we're on this job with because of this company, and then sometimes we're the GC and they're coming in and doing this part, and it's really cool, man. I don't think you see that in a lot of industries, and a lot of people are just so cutthroat about business, and it's nice to see that community.
We're very fortunate. A lot of the projects and the scale of them that we're doing, you really get the best of the best, whether it's electricians or plumbers, and anything like that, roofers. We get to deal with guys that are essentially leaders in their field, and there's so much to learn from, It's actually a privilege, you get not only paid to work, but you're getting paid to learn, as long as you ask questions that if you don't know the answer, you get to learn from these guys that are the best.
Yeah,
it's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
We've got a couple people on, Mike, that have had the same outlook. I think Anthony Caruso Builders, pretty much learned how to build a house from his subcontractors.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I remember him saying that. That was a cool interview. But that's what he said. He's like,
just good to ask.
Yeah.
He was like, what are you doing? Why you do that? What? And he's like, that's what he said. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. I found that most people, if you're very honest or earnest about your questions, they're more than willing and very outgoing to help you learn. As long as it's honest, there's no such thing as a dumb question if you're truly curious and want to learn to make everything better. And I think every contractor so far, that in my, I guess, relatively short career compared to other people, have always been great, just learning. Yeah.
I know we're getting short on time, and we'll ask you that last final wrap up question. D, anything we're forgetting before we ask the last question here?
What do you do when you're not working?
Well, obviously I touched on the whole being a father thing now, so that has changed dramatically. This past year I've really gotten back into going golfing, and because that's something we can essentially do as a family. We put the baby carrier in the golf cart, and like my son sits on my lap as well, and my son's two. Is a complete maniac. He's wild, but he's actually taken up golf. Like, he has a swing, and it's amazing. So
you got your 2-year-old golfing?
Yeah, he's got his own. He has a putter this big.
Oh, that is awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. He has a little golf bag that I put on the cart for him. It's like a whole. Yeah, he has a Titleist visor. He's like in it.
Oh my God, that is great. That is absolutely great.
Yeah, and I own land, where we are. I live on, about 15 acres. I have a motocross track on it, so
nice.
Get dirt bikes, 4-wheelers, stuff like that. I rip around, but actively just being a father and doing things with my wife, and we go out and do things, and that's what's taking up a lot of my time, and also reading a lot. I love learning, not even necessarily about construction, but anything.
What are you reading right now?
Right now, I just finished Schwarzenegger's new book called Be Useful. That was kind of a self-help book there. And then there's, every once in a while I try to read like a political one, just kind of learn more about. I just read Reagan Land, the transition from, Jimmy Carter to Ronald Reagan. Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, that's cool, man.
Yeah, kind of every once in a while I'll pick out a book that I'm like, I could never foresee myself reading this, and I read it on purpose, and you gotta do it.
I'll read it on purpose. Well,
yeah.
You do audiobooks on that 1.5-hour long trek from
audiobooks, podcasts. I've perused a bunch of your episodes.
I was gonna say, other than Blue Collar Startup.
Yeah, actually, that episode with Catamount was very good. We deal with Catamount quite a bit.
Yeah,
it was great to see them from that side of it. I'm usually face to face with them, but yeah, a lot of podcasts. Kind of quirky with what I'm interested in. Golf architecture, stuff like that. It's really, yeah.
That's cool.
That's pretty much it.
So the question we ask on every show, pretty much to wrap up the episode, if you're going to tell someone thinking about the trades or in the trades, if you're going to tell them one thing about going into the trades or being in the trades, what would you tell them?
I would tell them, kind of a blanket statement, is just to never say no. There's a time that you don't want to do something, and you have to make that, executive decision on yourself. But I think if we are all going to experience or get, things thrown at us or opportunities, and you always have to seize the moment. Everything that got me to where I am now is because I would see something come up or that's available to me, and I always said yes. Always, I did it, Yeah. And I think, as long as it's, if you have a clear goal in mind of where you want to be and a clear path that you think you should follow, and those opportunities come to help reinforce that path, always say yes, and, it's worked for me. I hope it works for a lot of your listeners, but just, and actively just be curious, be curious, and being a lifelong learner. If you never say no and always have a commitment to better yourself through learning, there's really no stopping you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. William, we appreciate you coming on the show.
I really appreciate it. It's been an honor. I hope it was useful, and I hope we can do it again sometime.
Yeah, man. Anytime.
Yeah.
Where can people find Jersen if they want to learn more about the company, more about what you guys are up to?
Yeah, you can just Google us, Jersen Construction Group, out of Waterford. We're also on Instagram. You can follow that as well. I'm sure in the show notes, you can actually put my email in there as well.
Okay, we will.
Yeah, if anyone has any questions, thoughts, concerns, anything, feel free to email me, and I will do anything I can for anyone that even if they want to get more involved with labor advocacy.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I'll make myself available to anyone.
Perfect, man. Thank you so much again. And
thank you for having me.
Yeah, man. And thank you to our sponsors. Obviously my company, Five Towers Media, for helping to produce the podcast episodes. And thanks to Derek and Derek's team over at Daigle Cleaning System, Daigle Fire Solutions, his other company. Thanks to a couple of our sponsors, the Michaels Group, MLB Construction, Catamount Consulting. All these folks are amazing. Thanks to Pam and Doug over at the Northeast Coalition of Trades Workers. Those guys are great. Yeah. What they're doing is super important. AGC for doing what they do for the Contractors Association. Thanks everybody for making it possible. The support that you guys are giving us helps bring these incredible stories to our listeners every week. And thank you to our listeners, of course, for tuning in. Hopefully you learned something on this episode or maybe even felt inspired. If you want to get in touch with us or connect with the community, check us out at bluecollarstartup.io, or you can drop us an email at hardhat.bcsu@gmail.com. If you have questions, you want us to ask a certain question, please guys, just shoot us an email, or you can even comment on the YouTube videos or Rumble videos. Just help us get the word out, maximize our impact by sharing the show, your friends, your family, your network. Connect with us on social, hit that subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube or watching on Rumble. And until next time, keep building, keep dreaming, keep hustling like your future depends on it. Thanks, guys.